Hey everybody, this is Nathan Sanders from Arcane Duels, and we're on episode 4. Before I begin, I'd like to congratulate Alexander West for winning the tournament at Gen Con, and Justin Lowe, a member of Arcane Duels. He got 4th place, so congratulations guys, well done. Now, episode 4, we're going to talk about building a spellbook. Our previous episodes were of me and Justin doing some matches. They were entertaining to say the least, so if you haven't got the chance to check them out, go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to talk about my philosophies on building a spellbook, my opinions, and the things that I do when I build one. So after it's all said and done, you know, I'm not like a master or some genius at this or anything, but after it's over, please do give some feedback. We've received a lot of good feedback on our other videos, things about sound quality, video quality, strategies, errors we may have made, all that. So please continue to post those. We really appreciate them. We're just trying to build some high quality stuff that everybody wants to watch and can enjoy, and you know, build up the community of Mage Wars, because we love it and we want everybody else to love it too. So, without further ado, building a spellbook. When I make a spellbook, the very first thing I think about, part 1 is what I like to call it, is part 1 is all about building what is the core of your spellbook. What does it do? How does it win? This is vital to every spellbook. If you just make a hodgepodge, this book made of just a bunch of random spells, it's not going to go very far. I mean, that doesn't mean that no spellbook can win, but it will be problematic. So when you make a spellbook, the very first thing you should think about is, what does it do? And this is pretty simple to think of. You know, a lot of people go, man, wouldn't it be cool to build, you know, a Beastmaster that summons Galador instead of all the other creatures and shoots them with lightning? And I mean, I don't know if that's your thing. I guess go ahead. But anyway, that would be essentially the idea. When building a necromancer, for instance, you can say, okay, I want to make a lot of creatures, a lot of zombies. You know, this is one of my favorite builds. I'm going to build a lot of zombies. They're going to be small, but whatever. They're hard to kill. And I'm going to slowly march them down a field, and then all of a sudden I'm going to cast Zombie Frenzy, and they're all going to swing at my opponent for a 1 or 2 turn kill. So that would be the basic premise of your spellbook. So that's part 1. When doing part 1, just make sure that you put the creatures or spawn points or you know, the equipment or whatever it is that your book is about, put those in, and usually I'd say do no more or less, but luckily this nifty spellbook builder we have here from Arcane Wonders is pretty fantastic, and allows us to you know, add more cards in that we would be able to normally put in, so you can take things out if they don't work. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2 is all about what makes your build work in the first place. How do you counter your opponent's strategy against your strategy? In other words, using the previous build, I'm making a necromancer with a lot of zombies that rushes them. If my opponent is constantly running away from me, that would be a problem. If there's so many walls, that would be a problem. If they are running a lot of flying creatures, so I can't do anything against those creatures, or they're healing, or whatever the case is, whatever they're doing to stop my build from working, I need to make sure that I have a counter to that. So if my opponent's moving around too much, things like Force Hold, Tangle Vines are pretty helpful. If my opponent has a lot of armor, so I'm not dealing a lot of damage, obviously acid balls, dissolves, etc. So you need to come up with strategies to counter your opponent's way to stop you from winning. Alright, so that's part 2. The third part to building a spell book is ways to counter your opponent's strategy. It's all about what they do. So if you got to consider the builds that are going to give you a problem. In this instance, I would say the Zombie Frenzy build versus another, let's say, Swarm build, another mass creature deck, not going to be a huge issue, simply because you're going to try to out-creature them and hit them faster and harder. So things that would give you a problem are mages who have too much armor. So you know, their build is all about armor. Make sure you have ways to stop that from working. If they're going to push you through a wall of thorns, you know, maybe an Eagle Boots is necessary. Things like that. So make sure part 3 is all about building a book that, or building that will prevent your opponent from winning. Alright, so now that we've talked about which parts you want to think about when making your spellbook, let's talk about which mage you should use. There are two ways to look at it as far as I see. There's first you decide what you want your deck to do. So I want to mass swarm and then pin them down so they can't move, and then just run far away with my mage, so then I can just whittle them down with my creatures. There are a number of mages you can do with that, and so you think of the build first and then pick which mage suits your style best. That's one way of looking at it. Or the other way of looking at it is going, I really want to play a warlock and I want to burn things a lot, so obviously warlock is good, and then you build the rest of the spellbook around that. In this instance, I'm actually going to start with my mage. I don't see a lot of Jotari Beastmasters, and I do like her a lot, but she tends to be less favorable compared to the other mages because, honestly, her abilities are a little contradictory to each other. I think if she had elusive instead of fast, that would pretty much solve everything about her. Also a ranged weapon where she can move, but that's been talked about on the forums. Go ahead and check it out. There's been some good discussions, and maybe some hints were dropped occasionally down the line that we may actually see one of those. But anyway, this is not about that. This is about building my Jotari Beastmaster. Alright, so she... I have her. I picked the mage. I think what I'm going to do with her is go with the idea of building a lot of medium-sized creatures because they're hard to deal with. So build a lot of medium-sized creatures, hit your opponent, and then shoot them with a bow. What a surprise, right? So that's what I'm going to do. And so since I'm not really swarming them, but I'm hitting them heavy with medium creatures, I think I'm going to make them dogs because dogs are good. Wolves and stuff like that. They kind of rock. So I'm going to call this the wolf. No, we'll just call it the Pack Master. Wow, real original. Okay. So bam, I have my name, the Beastmaster, blah blah blah. Okay, so we have that. Let's talk about what we absolutely need in our deck. So this is part one. Actually, before we talk about part one, I'm going to talk about mana usage and openings. Real quick, mana usage is really important to think about. It's really cool to throw in things like, I don't know, banish and force crushes and stuff like that, but if you're looking at it going, man, I'm never going to cast this because I'm not playing a wizard. If you're never going to cast a spell because you're just not going to have the mana, or it's going to cause problems because of its upkeep down the line, don't put it in. As cool as it would be, if you're never going to cast it, that's just wasted spell points in your deck where you could be throwing something a lot more versatile in to solve other problems. So mana usage, and you'll hear me talk about what will be important mana-wise for my mage later on. Also, openings. Openings something you can consider after you've already picked out your cards, or it can be something while you're doing it. I'm pretty familiar with the Jotari Beastmaster, at least this type of build, so I'm going to say I'm going to keep my opening in mind while I'm building this. So the very first important thing I'm going to need is my lair. Lair is arguably one of the very best, spawn points in the game. So boom, if you've never seen it, there it is. Take a look at it. Yes. Okay. So we have our lair. No need to have more than one, even if I can. Epic, yeah. So I have a lair. Also, harmonizing is pretty cool. I tend to like that. Summoning 3 mana for practically no cost, no ties to it. I don't have to injure anything, or my opponent doesn't have to cast spells or anything like that. So harmonizing it is pretty good stuff. Let's go down. Harmonize. Throw 1 in. No reason to have more than 1. See some people casting harmonize on themselves just in case. Take a look at it. Mage Mind +2. That means it costs 6. That's a Moonglow Amulet. I don't like Moonglow Amulet personally. Mana Crystal or Mana Flower only costs 5, so that's 1 turn more of mana efficiency you're getting out of it. So in 4 turns, this is making up for itself. So 1 harmonize only on your lair. Also, go back to conjurations, just in case I feel like my opponent's going to give me time. I guess I'm going to throw in a Mana Flower, but this is, whether I use this is all determined on what my opponent does. So, throw one of those in. Okay, so that pretty much determines my opening. I have a harmonized and a lair, harmonized cost 4, and then lair cost 15. So that means that's a total of 19 in my opening turn. That's a perfect opening as far as mana is concerned. So I know next turn I'm only going to be generating my 9 plus the 3 from the harmonized lair. So if I do decide to throw a mana flower in, that's going to cost 5, leaving my Beastmaster with 4 mana and 3 on the lair. I can summon a creature for 7. It's not the strongest, but I suppose if you want to summon like a dog or something, you can. Anyway, so that determines my very first turn. So the second important thing, as far as part 1 is concerned, is my creatures. So let's go with nature creatures. We have the Bitterwood Fox. They're pretty good. I mean, they're canines. I'm going with a canine build. And what's always important to having a canine build, if you have the mana and way to do it, is Red Claw Alpha Male. I feel with this mage, I'm going to have some turns where I do not summon a creature. If I can hold off for a turn or two, then from summoning a creature, I can throw down this Red Claw Alpha Male here. He's pretty awesome. Gives all my canine creatures armor +1 and melee +1. So yes, gonna throw him in there. If I don't like him, I can change it later. But I have the feeling that's gonna come into play. Usually want to summon him when you have about 3 or 4 canine creatures on a field, and then suddenly your creatures are more resilient and doing 3 additional damage. So that's a nice benefit. Next is Direwolf. I love Direwolf. Direwolf is one of my favorite creatures. With the discounted cost from 3 mana from the Harmonized Lair, he's only going to cost 9, and if you'll notice, that is exactly all of the Mage's mana. So that's pretty powerful. That may even be my turn 2. I normally would say maybe you want to build it more, but in this instance, let's definitely say that he's a strong possibility for turn 2. I'm going to throw another one in there. I might even do another one, but we'll decide later. Yeah, a strong possibility considering your opponent, when you throw down a medium-sized creature, turn 2, your opponent tends to immediately recalculate what they're doing, and you can kind of mess up their plan. So Direwolf Alpha. Let's see, next up we're going to do a Timberwolf. Alright, Timberwolf. Awesome stuff. Very, very high value creature, 2 armor with Red Claw 3 and 5 instead of 4. Either way, he's a solid creature. He's pretty tough to kill, and he's great for the build. So definitely that. For now, I'm going to do, let's go 3 of these guys, and we talked about the Bitterwood Fox, so let's go ahead and, if I have nothing else to do, if I'm going to be casting, something heavy in mana, I might still want to throw down a creature. In that case, Bitterwood Fox is pretty much my only option here. So let's go and do 3 of those. They only cost 3 spell points total for the 3 of those, so, oh, yep, something I forgot to do. Nope, only one of those. Let's do 1 of each of these. I may or may not have multiple copies, but unimportant at the moment. So bam, we have those 4 solid creatures. Total of them. Let's see, we had 3 Bitterwood Foxes, 2 Dire Wolves, so that's 5 Red Claw and the Timberwolf. So that's going to bring us to 9. So that's 9 creatures. It is safe to say that those may be the only creatures I'm summoning. As far as the lair goes, because 9 creatures. Usually if you are going to have that many creatures, you want them to be versatile, so they do multiple things to counter your opponent's strategy. So for instance, Surveyor is nice because he's fast and elusive, and if you rouse the beast on him, he can be pretty deadly right off the bat, because if they're doing multiple guarded creatures, he just comes out of nowhere and smacks them for at least 4 damage. I'm not going to throw him in though. Just pointing out that you can have different types of creatures. You know what is fun though? Let's go ahead and just real quick jump to part 2 of the build. Is things that will make my build work in the first place. And for that case, Thornlasher, not a bad idea. I can't summon it through the lair, he's not a beast, but meh. I'm going to go ahead and throw him in anyway. If I don't like it, I'll take him back. The reason why I'm considering him is because he pulls my opponent toward him, which allows my creatures to get the chance to attack. If the opponent's going to teleport away or what have you, a creature like this can save your day, and it prevents the opponent from getting too far away because you continue to snatch them every time they move. So let's go ahead and throw him in there, and I will reconsider it later. So, yes. Okay, so that's pretty much determined my creatures. That's most of the build, or at least part one of what makes this deck win. Let's go into equipment because the next thing that's going to be necessary is a hunting bow. Hunting bow, if you don't know much about it, it gives piercing +1 and a 7-up bleed chance if the opponent has already been attacked and damaged by a friendly animal creature. So that means your canines. And that works really well with the Jotari's Beastmaster's ability because of Wounded Prey, and basically it does this chain reaction. So you just have to use your mage and the creatures right, and you get all these nifty little bonuses. So the hunting bow, pretty solid as far as as range equipment goes. A little pricey, but it does the job. And 3 spell points. So we're gonna go and throw it in there. I think this is important to the build, so for now I'm actually going to put 2 in, just in case it gets dissolved, which is a fair assumption. So boom, we have our equipment. So that's part 1. We have the lair, summoning creatures, and then once the creatures are down, I have the hunting bow that aids in the creatures destroying my opponent. So part 1 is done. Now we're on to part 2. What can stop my opponent from preventing my build from working? So let's take considerations. First off, let's think. I always consider the heavy warlock or the solo warlock or force master build when I build a deck anytime. I always consider them because they're large possibilities and they're one-trick ponies, but they do the job. So how can I prevent that? Well, first thing you can think of is we'll go to water. Where are you at? Okay, dissolve. Dissolve. Dissolves can. I'm going to throw 2 in. Let's think. Dissolves can be a problem if they're running armor, so you might want them for armor, but also weapons can be a pain. I'm mostly going to think in this case Veteran's Belt and anything that gives like a dodge chance, because there are other ways to deal with armor, and if they're doing straight up weapons, I'm probably not going to be too concerned with dissolving it, simply because I've got other things to deal with that and save me. So dissolve is important to get rid of those tricky things. Also, if we're going to consider, let's go to attack. And we got acid balls. Acid balls are great. Acid balls change the meta. They change the game completely. So acid ball. 4 points of armor can be a problem. Acid ball can statistically bring that to 2 points of armor, which is still a bit of an issue. Let's go ahead and throw 2 in for now. You'll notice that I'm probably going to end up going maybe a little overboard occasionally, or a little too less. I will adjust them as I see fit. So while I'm here, Geyser, well, we'll save that for part 3. Okay, so equipment builds are going to be a problem. Also, let's see, my mage is going to want to shoot the bow a lot, and if my opponent is in my face, shooting is impossible. So how can I deal with that? Let's go to Arcane, Incantation, and everybody knows and loves it, the teleport. Let's go ahead and talk about teleport versus force push. A lot of my builds will end up using more force pushes than teleports. Teleports are obviously the better choice if you're a wizard. Most builds are not, and so force push is a heavier consideration. Let's see. Teleports. The benefit over teleport versus force push is that you can move them 2 spaces, although it's more spell points to put in your deck, and moving them 2 spaces or 4 spaces is very costly. So I will at least throw a teleport in, and then force push. If people are running force or running the wall build, it's actually really funny if you're using force push, because you can just knock them into their own wall. I do it all the time because a lot of wall builds think about pushing you through, but they don't think about what's going to happen to them in return, and they often don't armor up because they're trying to attack you so fast. Anyway, force push tends to be pretty versatile, so I'm going to go ahead and throw let's just throw 2 in. So I have 1 teleport, 2 force pushes, and we'll reconsider later. A lot of people like to run a lot of teleports. They think that 3 or 4 are necessary. I tend to disagree because I think the game goes faster than that. I mean, I guess I should also say that my theories when it comes to playing the game are that I don't like to run too many dissolves, dispels, and teleports. Those tend to be necessities. I don't like to run that many because my theory is if you're too busy trying to counter the things that they're doing, then you're never actually accomplishing what you're supposed to do. So that's just my opinion, and that's how I look at it. So anyway, we're going to do 2 force pushes, 2 teleports, and we'll go from there, I guess. Okay, so enemies in our face, we have some way to counter it, and yeah, that'll do. Okay, so another thing to consider is if my enemy is moving around too much, if they run out of range of my creatures and myself, ultimately at the end of the day, I'm going to want to hold them in place. So while I'm here in the mine section, let's go to enchantments. And one of my favorite spells to finish the game is Force Hold. Force Hold is costly to put in as well as to cast because of its upkeep +3. However, you don't cast Force Hold early in the game, my opinion, because it's too vulnerable to being dispelled. Instead, you cast it when you've already solidified basically that you're going to win. When you have a lot of creatures and they don't, or your enemy's on the ropes because they're down to half their life or whatever, you're going to want a way to keep them in place, and not many spells do it as well as Force Hold. So we're going to throw just 1 in because I have other ways of doing this that are cheaper. Force Hold's my finisher. Other ways to cause complications in the meantime. Conjuration, one of the favorite spells of everybody, Tanglevine. Tanglevine doesn't regenerate like most living conjurations plants do, but it still has 8 health, so depending on the mage, that's generally going to take 2 to 3 actions to destroy. That's 2 to 3 actions in your pocket when you only used a quick cast marker. So we're going to throw 2 in. Tanglevine's also versatile in the sense that it can be used on enemy creatures. If they summon a large creature and you Tanglevine it, and you basically just ruin that creature's their actions for 2 or 3 turns unless they're being aided by other friendly creatures to them. So, bam. There's that. While I'm here, I'm just going to throw one of these guys in. Reason being, Waldthorns, the trick of pushing the mage through for 10 points of damage, or 10 dice of damage, is just ridiculous. The reason I did is because I already have 2 force pushes in. So if I can use it as a finisher, because let's say my opponent didn't cast any armor, it will surprise them because you weren't running a force push build, you were running something else, and then suddenly they did something where they think they're safe, and then you just finish them off with that spell. It can take a lot of people by surprise if that wasn't your strategy the whole game. So there's that. Other ways to stop, let's see, what are the other problems? Mass creatures running on your mage. Basically the counter that is out-damage them, and then run the heck away. So speaking of running away, let's go to incantations, nature, let's see, we'll go to those in a second. Let's see. We'll go war. Things that help with this charge. Charge is a good spell. Charge costs 1 more than force push or a teleport will. However, your creature's going to get +1. Granted, if you're still being hindered, this spell is useless. But it can be helpful. I'm just going to throw 1 in. It doesn't actually necessarily solve the problem of mass creatures running at you, but that's what the teleports and force pushes are there for. Let's think, what else can cause problems with that? Multiple creatures guarding against your creatures, that can be a problem. The Jotari Beastmaster and the Priest are the best mages when it comes to dealing with other creatures, because most other mages don't have anything that specifies, that specifies an ability that acts against a creature rather than a mage. So Wounded Prey is an obvious ability of the Jotari Beastmaster that helps here. And that being said, if they're trying to counter your creatures with creatures, you have an edge against them. So Yeah, let's see. Other builds that can stop this one from working. Alright, so other things that my opponent can do to counter my strategy. Let's see. You know, I don't know why I didn't talk about it before. Dispels. Dispels are solid. Dispels are necessary in every deck. Question is how many. Some people like to run 4 or more. I think that's totally unnecessary, just because I mean, if you're, it's the same thing with teleport. If you're running that many, you're being pretty much counterproductive to what you want your build to do. So normally I only run like 2. This I think I can get away with 3, simply because enchantments can really mess with my creatures and my mage, and I don't want that to happen. So run enough dispels that they counter curses, counter circle fire, circle lightning definitely being more of a problem with this build. Although I have a history of just not destroying the circle of lightning when I should, if you've remember from my previous matches. So anyway, 3 dispels with the intent that I'm actually going to use them when I need to. I think that does part 2. I think we can come back to it later if we need, but let's move on to part 3, talking about what my opponent's going to do to try to win and how can I counter that. While we're at it, why don't we just go ahead and talk about the wizard. Wizard's Tower is an issue against any other deck, even another wizard. So that's a strong consideration that you have to bring in. While I'm here, I might as well. Let's just see Wizard's Tower. If you don't already know what it does, of course. So there's that. But anyway, counters to Wizard's Tower. I think that the best one I can think of is Force Hammer. Force Hammer's solid. I wasn't a big fan of it until recently, but you can't really argue with 8 dice of damage against a conjuration, corporeal conjuration at least. I've ran the numbers, and usually it can knock out a Wizard's Tower in 1 hit. At least it usually does for me. If it doesn't, it's pretty close to dead unless you roll bad, roll abysmally awful, which I'm on to do. So anyway, if it does come that close, you can strike it down with the creature, saying it's so close to being destroyed. So anyway, Force Hammer for Wizard's Tower, also good against Pentagram, which you're probably going to be seeing a lot more of with the new Warlock. Let's go with Earth Conjurations, because I'm gonna talk about walls. Wall of Earth, I think, is bad. 8 health, no armor. For something that's supposed to block passage, it's easily destroyable. If I'm going to play a wall that I want to block passage, I usually want to make something that makes my opponent think twice about attacking it. Wall of Earth doesn't do the job. Wall of Steel is great, however, I don't need that much dedication for its mana cost, so Wall of Stone is definitely the choice here, I feel. I'm going to use this to wall myself in if I need to, saying I'm down to the wire. I can wall myself in and let my creatures finish the job. Also, walling in an opponent, walling in their spawn point, I've done a few times, is pretty funny. That's not really why it's in there, but just in case, it's nice to have. And while I'm talking about walls, let's go ahead and go to Nature Equipment, and let's talk about those Eagle Claw Boots. Eagle Claw Boots are great. Seriously, they're unmovable, so you can pretty much ruin push wall builds, obviously until the Eagle Claw Boots are dissolved. So unmovable, also good against Force Master to a degree. Climbing trait, if you wall yourself in, you can get out. If your opponent walls you in to separate you from your spawn point. Various uses. Eagle Claw Boots are great. They're versatile, especially for a Nature Mage. Definitely put one in. You're going to be happy when you do end up having to use it. So, yeah. Alright, other things to consider are fire. Both Warlocks use a lot of fire, duh. And you may even fight the occasional fire wizard. Especially the new Warlock, she relies on it to make her really work the way she's meant to work. So to counter that, I'm going to go to, the opposite, and where you at? Water. Alright, so Let's go to attack spell. We got Geyser. I love Geyser. Geyser's so versatile and it's cheap. It really good for knocking out burn conditions. Has a decent daze chance if you need one. Their damage is not a lot, but it is unavoidable. So if they throw down a creature that is, you know, familiar or one of those really fast dodgy creatures without a lot of health, Geyser can pull out a awesome hit for you if you're lucky, and will destroy that creature. And that creature probably costs them, you know, like at least 8 mana, so doubles its cost and worth. So bam, throwing a Geyser. Geyser's good. We only did one, right? Yeah, we did one. Okay, cool. So fire's taken care of. I mean, for the most part, basically against the new Warlock, she's just going to want to need to throw one burn token on you, and then imps are going to surround you. Also, you know, throw a lot of fire on you and combust you. Either Warlock can obviously capitalize on that. So if you know you're going to be burned a lot, use it when you have 3 or 4 burn tokens on you. If you see the new Warlock building up on a lot of creatures, she's just going to prepare it basically when you think she's going to ignite you or throw a fire spell on you, and then the moment she throws one burn token and summons one of the wildfire imps to you, you can Geyser that one thing off, and it pretty much just ruins that whole turn. So her imps are just sitting there doing, you know, nothing. So yeah, I'm just going to do one of those, and we'll move on. Let's see. Things they can do. They can do a lot of curses. We already got the dispels. We got 3 dispels, so that pretty much is going to take care of that. If you had any more dispels, then it would just be a waste of time. Mana siphoning. We could throw in I can't even remember the name of the conjuration that gives us mana back. I'm not too concerned about that. You know, I'm generating a lot of mana to 12 theoretically every turn because of our lair. So we'll just not worry about that. Let's see, equipment builds, not really an issue. Let's go through the list of mages. So here, can't do that. I guess we'll just go through the list. Wizards, I mean, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but fire and lightning can be a problem, so let's go ahead and go to equipment, arcane, and one spell I usually recommend in every deck is Elemental Cloak. Frost isn't anything right now, but Flame -2, Lightning -2, pretty good. Plus, you know, +1 armor to boot. So throw one of those guys in. It'll most likely get destroyed. It usually does get destroyed. However, it's nice to have. Armor, by the way, still pretty nice if you have the chance to cast it. So let's go ahead. I think fire is more relevant right now than lightning, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in this Dragon Scale Halberd. So, waboosh. Alright. So we got the wizards, for the most part, somewhat taken care of as best as you're going to be able to. Other Beastmasters, creature swarms, you're not going to... we've already gone over that. Let's see, we got the new Warlord. He's going to be summoning a lot of creatures. Pretty much the same thing there. Necromancer's going to be summoning a lot of creatures, but his creatures are just going to rush you in the face, and you're going to rush him right back and hope that you can deal more damage than him. So getting away from his creatures is pretty much the main strategy there. Already got the teleports and force pushes to deal with that, so not an issue. Let's see, can I think of anything else? Alright, yeah, okay. So, buddy builds. I don't know why I haven't been thinking about buddy builds, but buddy builds are an issue. You have the Warlock, obviously, with his Blood Reaper. You have Priest as an option. I usually see him running either just one creature with buddy build and running equipment, or maybe 2 to 3 creatures until he can... I mean, pretty much win the game or throw down more creatures. So, buddy builds, yeah, buddy builds an issue. So, from here, we're going to want ways of dealing with that. We have the Force Push Tangle Vines. Those are helpful against flying creatures. That can be an issue. Flying creatures in general kind of can be an issue. So, against medium-sized or larger flying creatures, we're probably going to want to run, yeah, we'll run in... no, we'll do enchantments. Boom. Dark. I often run just one of these. It really depends. Main wings. Okay, so we have one of those. That's going to deal with the flying version of a buddy builder, or even larger creatures. Other ways to deal with it: agony. While we're at traps, agony is always nice. We'll just run one of those. I don't, for this kind of build, don't see the need to run any more than that. Enfeeble, yeah. Let's run an Enfeeble. I mean, I guess that can kind of do the same thing that Maim Wings does. Not exactly, because if you want to kill the creature, you're going to need the Maim Wings. But while I'm at it, let's go to incantations. Mind of knockdown. Okay. I don't see a lot of people use this, but I love knockdown. Knockdown is very versatile. If a creature's guarding, knock them down. They're not guarding anymore, so you can get to the mage. If a force master or what have you is dodging a lot, knock them down. If a creature's flying and you've already used your Maim Wings, or the Maim Wings isn't even worth using on them, knock them down and then kill them. Knockdown is really versatile, and I often end up using it. So because of that, I'm definitely going to throw one in. Sleep can be a thing, however with buddy builds usually the mage is back to back with their creature, so sleep not always the best choice. I mean, granted, yes, the enemy has to hit the sleeping creature, but it kind of, I mean, it's expensive for just allowing them to knock it off with a punch. I guess we'll just call it there for the buddy builds. Next, Druid. Druid can be an issue. Druid started off really weak, and then once people started to really understand her and use her, she's actually she's pretty, if I'm not mistaken, pretty common in the Gen Con tournament. I could be wrong there, but Druid's pretty powerful because of her ability to take board control. No other mage can do it like her, other than the Warlord with the barracks and all that. However, she still does it better. The Vine tokens can hinder creatures, and if even one Vine token prevents a creature from being able to attack you because they can't, run or what the case is, then that's one attack that you didn't suffer. So Vine tokens really save her. Also, I think plant creatures are probably the best bang for your buck. They're really efficient for what they do. It's just that most of them can't move. So the druid has to find other ways of making that work. And if a druid's going to run those creatures, she's going to find a way to make them work. That being said, druid can be an issue. For those creatures, the option could be that I just use my creatures to take down her creatures, and they are living things. So token or the Wounded Prey token can work. Other things that involve the bow, for instance, that can work. Yeah, countering those creatures with my creatures is an obvious choice. If she's running those heck, I even have one on my deck. The creature that pulls you in and does the thing is really annoying. Thorn Lasher. She's running a Thorn Lasher. I mean, it's not very tough, so you're definitely going to destroy that. Otherwise, you're just never going to get to her with your creatures efficiently. I mean, saying you run a lot, that's no problem, but still. I don't think I really need to add anything into my deck to take care of the druid. I think just what I have is just as efficient. So I think that pretty much solves what I need for part 3. So let's go to Spellbook Details. I filled in 95 points out of my 120, so I can just work from here. That pretty much does part 3, yeah. So we're on, I guess, we've done the 3 parts. We have what we use to win, ways to make sure that we can win, and how do we prevent our opponent from winning, essentially. So part 4, I guess I'm making up right now, is just extra nice cards that it would just be good to have in your deck. So yeah, let's see. I'm going to nope. Let's go to enchantments and nature. It'll be good to start off in your school, I guess. Bark skin, nope, can't do that. Bear strength is great. Bear strength is always good. Especially if you have the alternate art from Gen Con. Hint, hint. Let's go ahead and throw one of those in there. It's good stuff. You can throw it on any of your creatures. You'll have plenty of creatures to utilize that with. And let's go down the line. Bull's Endurance. Not a fan of Bull's Endurance. Life plus 4 for just one creature. I don't feel that's worth it, and I would usually never cast it on my mage, so I pass on that almost all the time. Cheetah speed. The thing if I haven't mentioned it before, the thing I see with fast, giving a creature fast, is you really only need it once. So once you're in their face, they're probably not going to get away from you, or at least 2 spaces away. So we will pass on cheetah speed, weird enough. And Cobra reflexes. Having a dodge, a defense, is really nice. And what's cool about enchantments like this, you can throw it on your creatures or yourself. So I like Cobra reflexes. It is a little pricey to throw on your mage, but it can also save the day. Just remember when you're playing a game, a lot of people, they tend to not worry about defense until it's too late. Not just literal defense, but armor as well. So you just gotta scout out the situation. Usually, I say once I've taken about 10 points of damage, I gotta start thinking about how am I going to save my bacon. I mean, of course, if your opponent has taken 25 damage and you've taken 10, then just finish the game already. But yeah, Cobra reflexes, having a defense that you can throw on your creatures or yourself just in case, really nice. So we'll throw one of those in there. Eagle wings. Flying on a creature is really cool. I actually do usually run this card for something. The only one I could absolutely really see myself wanting to throw it on is Red Claw, just to solidify that he's not going to get killed. He's already a pretty tough creature to destroy as is, and if they spent so many resources knocking him down, then at that point I'd probably turn the game around in my favor. So, I'm going to pass on Eagle Wings. Falcon Precision. Giving a creature the unavoidable trait is really good. If you're running a single solo or a buddy build or something like that, this is like key. You need this. However, I'm not, and it doesn't help my bow. And I have so many creatures that just one of them having unavoidable doesn't do me a lot of good. So I will pass on that. Hawkeye, yes, definitely. Being able to roll 6 dice of damage because your mage is going to have, the bow's going to give 4. Mage has range +1. And Hawkeye gives it to her as well. So rolling 6 dice of damage from afar every turn that you want to do it is just nasty. So definitely throw a Hawkeye. It's also cheap. So that's good. Lion Savagery. Lion Savagery is I'm really happy with this card. I saw it when it was a promo, and that was one of those cards I was really hoping he'd come out with. I mean, it's kind of like Bear Strength, and that is going to give you the charge +2, so it's a melee +2 with certain conditions. But you also get Piercing 1 out of it. And the charge +2 may only work when you're moving, but Piercing 1 always works. So you're usually going to get some benefit out of it. And if you're not, then I don't know, why did you cast it in the first place? But it's also only cost 1, and it has no Mage Bind. Not that helps me a lot because I'm ranged, but still, it is important to point out. So I will throw it in a Lion Savagery. Alright, moving on. Mongoose Agility. Mongoose Agility is cool. Elusive does 2 things. It works defensively and offensively. Defensive because you can run the heck away, you're not hindered by creatures, and offensive because you can ignore creature guards. Ignoring guards, not super important since I have that many creatures. Like if I was using a buddy build or a solo build, this would be mandatory. But since I have that many creatures, it's not a huge deal. And I'm not going to be running away a lot. I might, but I can use force pushes, teleports that, so I can use my bow if I need to. Also, hopefully pinning my opponents down means I won't necessarily need this, so I'll pass on it. I'll consider evade because maybe I might need it once. Regrowth. Regenerate 2, really cool for your creatures. It, if you're taking ongoing damage, this kind of counters it. You can use it on your mage, you can use it on one of your creatures. So I also don't really have any healing yet, if at all. So this is pretty good. So regrowth and Rhino Hide. Rhino Hide, I'm already, with the cloak and the dragon scale, I'm already getting 3 armor off of it, so this would stack on for a total of 5, especially if something is dissolved or whatnot. So 5 armor on my mage is good. I can throw 2 on my creatures if I feel like if they're being attacked a lot and I really want to keep them around. So yeah, I'll throw a Rhino Hide in. It only costs 1, so heck yeah. Something also to be mentioned right now is if you look, I have 5 pieces of equipment and 11 enchantments. Now, granted, Mass Dispel can be a problem if you're fighting a wizard, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, the way I look at it is I have 5 pieces of equipment, so that means that it's more likely that the important pieces of equipment are going to be dissolved. That's why I threw 2 bows in. But the more enchantments you have, the less likely your enchantments are to get dispelled. Same thing with equipment. More equipment, the less likely they're to be dissolved because there's more targets. So if you have, if you're questioning between a regrowth belt and a regrowth, or something that gives 2 armor this way or that, it basically, if you already have a lot of enchantments, go with more enchantments. Generally, because it is harder for them to be countered. So it's something to consider. Moving on. While we're at nature, let's go ahead and go to incantations. We have no use. No, Call of the Wild. And Call of the Wild is better when you have a lot of small creatures because you get more bang for your buck. Each creature means you deal an additional die of damage because of Call of the Wild. I don't have as many compared to the small creature rush, but I do have a decent amount, which means if I have 4 creatures on the field, that is 4 mana for 4 dice of damage, which is good. I mean, that's the statistic. So, and of course, if I have even more than just 1 more than that, it's worth it. So, Call of the Wild, I will throw 1 in. I don't think I'll need any more than that. I don't see myself casting it more than once. Rouse the Beast. Rouse the Beast is great as long as you're looking at it. If you're looking at it correctly, you can use it on Red Claw, and he will. He can run into the area where your puppies are, and he can give them all the benefit of the armor +1, the melee +1. So that's pretty good. Also, the way to look at Rouse the Beast is if I summon it, let's just say a Timberwolf, it does 4 dice of damage generally. If I cast Rouse the Beast on that, that is a level 2 creature, meaning I'm spending 2 mana on Rouse the Beast, and I'm getting 4 dice of damage out of it because that creature gets to act immediately, or at least act this round. So Rouse the Beast, if you're looking at it that way, weird enough, it acts as an attack spell, so it's pretty good. So I'm actually going to throw 2 in for both of those scenarios that I mentioned. Let's move on to conjurations. Yeah, we didn't go over all the conjurations, so let's see. Animal Kinship, no good. I only have 1 type of creature. Bloodspine Wall, no. I have some assets, so I don't really need that. Ethereal Life Tree. Yeah, Ethereal Life Tree. I wasn't a fan of Ethereal Life Tree at first, but I have to say, Alexander West, I'm pretty sure he used it in his build to win the Gen Con tournament, and I was very impressed with its use. Worked really well with the Eagles specifically because basically giving them +2 life means generally they're going to survive an additional attack, and that's awesome. And on top of that, they're flying, so they're even harder to hit. So that was Ethereal Life Tree was a pretty solid choice for him. I don't run as many small creatures, so it's actually not as good for me because I have medium-sized creatures. They already have a decent amount of life, so I'm not really concerned with putting it in this deck, but I will consider it in the future just because of how I saw it played out. Let's see, Great Tree of Life. I'm not a fan of the Regenerate 2 right now just because I don't really care about my creatures. I'll just summon more if they start to die off. And there's no guarantee I'm going to be able to keep them in a zone. If they move away from that zone and then I have to pull them back just to force hold them in that zone, I'll be kind of miffed about it. So, now, Rajan's Fury. Giving all your creatures charge +1 is pretty much the same thing as Call of the Wild, except for it's consistent. So it's like getting 2 uses off of it. If you force push or teleport your enemy out of the zone and then attack with all your creatures, that's an additional die of damage per creature you have on the field. The only problem is you just got to make sure that you don't do it before the mage acts, because if you do it and then you push the mage over and then they haven't acted, then it'll just move 1 space over, and now they're 2 spaces away, and your creatures aren't gonna, you just pretty much shot yourself in the foot. So, but otherwise, I'm gonna throw it in. It can be a good win condition, I suppose. Renewing Spring, I hate Renewing Spring. The way I look at it is, especially with things like Timberwolves and whatnot, they do 4 dice of damage, and yet I have to spend their action just to heal 3 dice, which is counterproductive because I would rather just do the 4 dice of damage, even with the risk of them dying. So Renewing Spring, not really a fan of it. I mean, the removing one condition is nice, but once again, I don't care that much. So I'm going to pass on that. Moving down, Stranglevine. Granted, I already have the Tanglevines in, but what's cool about Stranglevine is it's kind of like a Force Crush, even better if you give it time. If you summon it on a mage during the end of the quick cast phase, then next turn it's going to start with 7 life instead of 6. And you guard with a creature, then they're not able to destroy Stranglevine as easily, meaning it just keeps getting more and more powerful. And at that point, you cast it when you're already happy with the fact that you're going to have to pay the upkeep because it's worth the damage at that point. So I will throw Stranglevine in for reconsideration later. Tooth and Nail, not a fan of Tooth and Nail, just because, I mean, Piercing 1 only useful if they have the armor. I swear every time I play this, my opponent, or like when I'm considering using this or put it in a deck, my opponent never wears armor. I don't know what it is, they just don't. I would rather have Rajan's Fury over this. So, pass on that. And, let's move on to... Let's go to Incantations Arcane, see if there's anything else I want to add in. No, too expensive. No. Okay, no. Enchantments. No need. Essence Drain. Not a fan of Essence Drain. It takes 3 turns for it to really work its magic, and it would cost 4 spell points to put in this deck, so definitely not. Jinx. Jinx is fun. If you use it correctly, it can win you the game. If you anticipate that your opponent is going to heal themselves, or they're going to teleport away, which would destroy Tanglevine or Stranglevine if you have it on there. If you think they're going to dissolve something, going to destroy another enchantment like Forcehold, what have you. And Jinx can really just turn a game around, and it's cheap for what it does. So it's really good. However, in this case, I would rather throw in a Nullify. I actually don't often run these because I usually use the Dispels, but in the same instance that it can be a win condition, it also is versatile in a sense that it doesn't only work on your mage, it also works on their mage. It also works on your mage and creatures. So Nullify is pretty good, and obviously it destroys the spell for good rather than just staving off the effects. So we'll throw that Nullify in there. Yeah. So yeah, Nullify. Let's see, Reverse Magic, too expensive. Teleport Trap, no, I mean, it's fun, but won't be any use here. Turn to Stone, also, that's just a bad card. I almost never run Turn to Stone. I suppose it's versatile, weirdly enough, but it is no good, really. So that's it for that. Let's, attack spells. Alright, so, Arc Lightning. Arc Lightning and Flame Blast are good for the same reason, in a way that they're both unavoidable. So if you have a small dodging creature, it's good to hit them with it. It's also, these are good to finish off creatures that are close to death and unavoidable, or even finishing off the mage, whatnot. This is ethereal and has a stun chance, but Flame Blast is actually better for finishing off those creatures because of the burn token. So I am going to pass, though. I just see that I have so much other damage and aggro on the field that I'm not really concerned about it. Chain Lightning, Electrify, no, I don't really need to worry about mass creature attacks. Jetstream, though. We do have the Wall of Thorns, so Jetstream is pretty good there. While Force Push costs 6 to push them through, Jetstream only costs 4, and it does an additional 2 dice of damage. It's also good for hitting flying creatures with, because if you push them into a wall, that's 7 dice of damage. Granted, over 2 attacks, so if they have armor, that's kind of not as good, but still, it's worth noting. So, and you still get a good push chance just in case. So, Jetstream's pretty solid. I usually like to run one, and in fact I will. Let's move on to Fire, just in case. It costs triple, but you never know. No, and we already talked about Flame Blast, so I guess no Fire. And really, I think that's it for attack spells, so let's go on to War Incantations. Let's see, Akira's Battle Cry. No, definitely not. Can't do it anyway. Battle Fury. Battle Fury is cool It's really good if you have a creature that's rolling a lot of dice to attack with an effect, so it would be decent for direwolves, except for their second attack would only roll 3 dice of damage. So the way I look at it in that case is I'm spending 5 mana for only 3 dice. Granted, another bleed chance, but that's just really not worth it. It just doesn't fit this deck. Charge I already added. Defend. Defend is pretty solid. You can summon a creature out of the lair and immediately defend if your mage is in the same zone. And so, in a weird way, you're rousing the beast with a specific action on them. Also, if the enemy mage thinks you're tapped out and then all of a sudden you throw down a defend to save your life, it usually can kind of like... Usually when I cast defend, my opponent has to sit there and think for like a whole minute or two before they make their decision, because defend puts a wrench in their gears, weirdly enough. So I will throw one in. No more than that. I just don't have the time for it. Going back to elusive, I am going to throw this one in. It does actually end up costing me more more spell points, I think. I think so. But it only lasts for 1 round. It's cheaper. I will throw it in with the consideration of taking it out. Flank attack is great. It's basically... I have a lot of other spells that do similar effects. And this has a specific condition. Granted, I'm very likely to trigger that condition with multiple creatures, but I'm going to pass. Perfect Strike. I don't really care that much about the unavoidable, especially if I'm tangling my opponent up. Piercing Strike. Armor, I have the Acid, I have the Corrode. For 1 attack, I don't think Piercing Strike is really ever worth it, unless you're playing a Warlord and you can constantly cast it. Power Strike, not good unless you're playing Warlord. There's so many other things that do the same effect, so, Sniper Shot, it could use on my mage, but, meh. I would just rather than take the chance of dodging it, I guess. Whirling Strike, I don't see the need to hit multiple creatures. The enemy mage is kind of all I care about, and if I'm going to attack a creature, I don't mind sacking the actions from my other creatures to do so, so Whirling Strike is just expensive all around to throw in this deck. So, move on to enchantments for war. Yeah, okay. Kira's Favor. Kira's Favor is great. For only 3 mana, +2 on your mage, you get something that allows you to reroll the attack dice and the effect die if you wish, or if you're dazed. So you have those options, and works great for Direwolf Alpha. It'll work great for my mage, especially for my mage. Rolling 6 dice of attack or the bleed chance. It's just awesome. It works for everything, and it's cheap, so I could see myself casting it, and often do. So definitely going to throw in an Akira's Favor. Armor Ward, no, definitely not. Brace Yourself. Brace Yourself is awesome. It what's really not realized about it is that the +4 armor applies for the whole round. So if you are getting swarmed by a bunch of creatures, you suddenly throw on Brace Yourself, and it'll affect every single one of those rolls, and you didn't even need to cast armor on yourself. I do really like Brace Yourself, and it is novice, so I'm going to throw it in there. I realize I'm already over, and I don't necessarily need the armor, but it would still, like if I didn't have the chance to cast armor on myself, this works as a one-time wonder. So, yeah, definitely, I'll throw a Brace Yourself in. Fortified Position, no, that's all creatures, yeah. No, for the same reason that I'm not going to use the trees or anything like that, so... Retaliate used to be cool, and then Defend came out, and it pretty much kind of became better. Kind of depends. I can't use the rest, so... did I already go over Dark? Yeah, I definitely did. I pretty much have gone through most of the things that I would want to use at this point, so... already at 119. Huh. I'm actually under. How about that? In that case, let's add in like 15 more spells, right? We'll go back to Mind. Let's see, Force Hold, Force Crush, Force Field, Block I'm never going to do, really. Decoy is fun, and it is novice, so I guess it's good to throw them off. Really good for Wizard. Anyone can use it, so that's nice. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it though. Fumble acts as a block, except for on a specific creature. I've actually been more of a fan of fumble than block, although it can be pricier. And Stumble. Stumble also has to be used well if the enemy is one zone away from you. You cast Stumble on them, so when they activate, suddenly you reveal this, and they can, basically it means that they can move or attack. And so that can really mess things up for them. At this point, I think I'm really surprised I went under. Often I go about 10 or so points over and I have to cut back. So not having to worry about that. Oh, you know what I didn't add that I definitely really wanted to? Heal. So as far as a lot of creatures go, I did say that I don't generally care if they die, but it's always good to have a heal in there just in case. I'm not a fan of minor heal. It is really good. I mean, it is mana effective for what it does. However, the way I look at it is a lot of my creatures have, like 10 health or more, something like that. So at that point, it's actually better just to have a straight up heal in there. And also it's more effective for your mage if you need to cast it. Generally not a fan of healing my mage with a heal spell. I look at heals as good on using for your creatures. I'm gonna throw one in there. I think that it can definitely be useful and save me. So just to prove that, I did go over, not nearly as much. So basically I have just to cut out a few points, and I'll go up here, I'll take a look at things. I did 2 acid balls. Still wondering if I should stick with that, so there's a consideration. Let's see if there's any multiples of things I don't need. I'm happy with that. I do have 3 dispels. At this point, the way I look at it is I'm actually going to cut one out, and that brings me down to 2 dispels. I'm only 1 point over now, and I do remember there being one card that I was questioning, and the way I look at it is I'm probably not going to really get around to casting it. Rajan's Fury. Of course, if I do that, then then I'll be 1 point under again. Yeah, that's okay. We'll take it out, and we'll go back down here to readjust, I guess. So with one spell point left, I guess I should just go back to nature, since it's definitely going to be the only thing effective that I can cast. I don't need another Call of the Wild or Rouse the Beast. Let's check out, is there a piece of equipment that could possibly help me that only costs 1? No. Nope. Oh, nope. I guess we'll go back to enchantments then. Let's see, Bear Strength is level, no, Bear Strength is level 1. That's a high consideration. We did talk about fast, don't really need an additional one. I guess, yeah, I mean, you can't really complain about having too many bear strengths, so let's go ahead and throw another one in there, and bam, I am at 120 officially. As I said, normally I end up going about 10 points under, and then I have to come up here, and then I have to adjust accordingly, look at anything and say, okay, is there a way I can replicate this effect using a cheaper card? And so I end up going down to efficiency for the last few points, but I am at a nice 120, so I'm happy about that. Yeah. So real quick before I end this episode, I'm going to talk about my openings, and then probably mana usage. Yeah. So openings, we already talked about harmonizing my lair, so that's turn 1. Turn 2, I'm going to sit there with let's see, 9 mana in hand, 3 on my lair. I can throw down a direwolf like right off the bat. I normally don't start with that heavy of a rush right away, so I'd probably throw down one of my Timberwolf foxes. They're cheap. I mean, it's only going to cost 2 because 3 off of the lair. So that would be, let's see, that's 2 there, and then I can, let's say I throw, I don't know, I guess if I have the time, then we'll do Mana Flower. So we'll go Timberwolf, or not Timberwolf, sorry, we'll go with Bitterwood Fox, that costs 2. Then we'll throw down the Mana Flower, that's 5. That leaves me with 2 mana left, and then that will probably just be my turn. I'll either double dash or or just stay back, whatever. It's not action efficient, but it does do the job. So that leaves me with 2. Next turn I'll have 11 in hand, 3 on my lair. 11 is enough to cast my bow. So it's really, this is one of those builds where I don't have the perfect answer, as in I'm not going to use the same build every single time, no matter what I'm fighting, which basically the only mage I've seen that I'm happy with this same opening every time is my necromancer. But I don't have that luxury, so basically it depends on what my opponent does. If they're still giving me some time, I'll throw down a bow, because that means from then on I can be action efficient, because I'll at least be doing some damage and being able to throw down a creature and a quick spell if I need to. Yeah, so that would be my turn 3 as a bow, and then no creature. His next turn I'll end up having 6 mana on that and 9 in hand, and I can cast whatever the heck I want, really, and be able to shoot. So I would say that's my opening. I mean, I'll do a whole nother episode on openings, maybe if you guys want, even with this deck, and I can, go over all the different types and things that I'm going to use against different mages. And last thing I want to talk about real quick is mana usage. You'll notice that my creatures I chose their mana cost is there for a reason. That's why I chose them. Direwolf Alpha, if I'm being completely mana efficient, I have no mana at the end of the turn, I'll start with 3 on lair, 9 in hand. That's enough to cast a Direwolf Alpha, and if I already have my bow out, then at least I'm still being pretty action efficient. Otherwise, maybe I'll even take advantage of my fast trait, run in here and punch them in the face. Otherwise, stay back and wait for them to come to me, I suppose. So there's that. The Timberwolf is going to cost 9, so that's 3 out of the lair and 6 out of hand, and that leaves me with 3 left. That's enough for an Akira's Favor. That's enough for a number of other spells. So, there's that. And, I mean, really from there, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Most of my spells are not that expensive, Red Claw pretty much being the exception. And him I would obviously not cast unless I saved up mana for 1 or 2 turns. So that's pretty much it. I like to keep spells that aren't going to be too pricey. So, and I guess just the last few words. Thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any comments, please post them. I would love to hear arguments or other people's opinions on how to build a spell book. It may open my eyes, and of course everybody else watching this is going to get some good feedback. So please do post something. Tell me your thoughts. Well, I guess that concludes episode 4. Stick around. We'll have more stuff up, and thank you for watching.